Hi, this is Matt with State of Flux here with another 52-week movie challenge from Everyone's a Critic. We are on Challenge 41, a holiday movie. The movie I chose was Halloween Ends. Year released 2022, aspect ratio 2391, runtime 1 hour and 50 minutes, genre horror, rated R, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Andy Matichak, Rohan Campbell, Kyle Richards, and James Jude Courtney, directed by David Gordon Green, produced by Universal, Miramax, and Blumhouse, written by Paul Brad Logan, Chris Bernier, Danny McBride, and David Gordon Green, music by John and Cody Carpenter with Daniel Davies. Awards received, it's not going to happen. Why did I choose this particular film? Choose a holiday movie. This one just came out today. Perfect timing, right? Have I seen this movie before? No, I haven't. Would you recommend this film? Why or why not? Well, just like the opening title cards, they blew it. Font was blue this time, usually it's orange. This movie is undeniably awful. It is a terrible movie. Even for this franchise, which has some pretty hardcore duds, but I think I'm obsessed with it because it is phenomenally bad. I'm going to get into the minutia of why it's bad. I'll just sort of do a bare bones thing here, and then we're going to do a spoiler territory in the end. So would I recommend this film? Why or why not? No, I wouldn't. It's not a good movie. It does bring conclusion to this timeline of Halloween films that started in 2018, and so it makes good on that premise to some extent. The movie is sort of about how societally we build our own boogeyman. Now, these are concepts that I very much like, but similar to the last film, the Michael Myers of it all is where the movie completely falls flat. And also kind of where it lands on the we build our boogeyman nature of evil is really kind of counterintuitive to what I think the movie wants us to say versus what it's actually saying. Again, spoiler alert, it's happening at the end. Really what this film has going for it is I like some of the stuff that is done where they're exploring the nature of evil and how it is nurtured societally as a construct. And I liked the granddaughter. And then Jamie Lee Curtis is always fantastic. However, both Jamie Lee Curtis and the granddaughter, Allison, are sometimes mischaractered. Like, especially the granddaughter is very forward character. She's the one that makes the first move on the boyfriend. A large chunk of this film is a romance. She is always like upfront about what she needs to say until she's not and is a timid young woman that can't speak her mind. And it's like, wait, what is she? Is she one or is she the other? Because you've shown me several times repeatedly throughout the movie that she is the former, and then all of a sudden, like, her doctor boss person kind of like is snippy with her and she doesn't speak her mind, but her boyfriend's like, you should never let anybody talk to you like that. And then also she has like another ex-boyfriend figure who is 20 years too old, and she doesn't know how to talk to him at all or stand up for herself, and the boyfriend figure is like, you really shouldn't let him talk to you like that. Bullshit. Her character is good until she is poorly written. This film is built on many contrivances, a lot of which come with the genre, and I'm going to condemn the biggest one right now. There's two philosophies within the horror genre. That is, you have characters that are likable, so when they die, you feel it. And then there's this film. This is sort of something that has come up in the past 15, 20 years or so, kind of post-Scream. these films, slasher films, can no longer operate under the rules that Scream sort of exposed. So in its place, what they've done is, rather than have killer pick people off based on the frivolous nature of sexual desire, or based on getting high or drunk and stuff like that, or saying tropey things like "I'll be right back," they have the characters excused to death by making everybody a fucking shithead. Everybody absolutely fucking sucks. Only the characters that suck are the ones that are going to be murdered, and it's so that you can root for the slasher. Now, this is something that slasher films operated on in the 70s and 80s, whether we knew it or not. We would see young people acting young and like fooling around and stuff like that, and then you knew those were the ones that the killer was gonna attack. You knew in the back of your mind, it was never spoken out loud. Scream spoke that out loud, and once they did, movies couldn't really operate under that anymore, so they shifted to this whole thing, and I can't stand it. Why would I want to spend my time watching people who actively suck, repeatedly suck, just so I can root for a killer who I should never be rooting for in the first place? That's what separates the Scream franchise from franchises like Friday the 13th or Halloween, is the characters that you're rooting for are the killer, when you should be rooting for the human. There's not a single character that is kind of a sucky character besides Cotton Weary in the entirety of the 5-film Scream franchise that isn't a killer. The victims are all people you genuinely should be liking, and that's why when some of them get picked off, Scream 2, I'm looking at you. Scream 2 had an iconic death scene that shook the fan base so much that they're still complaining about it. Similarly, the previous Scream movie did the same thing. That's because you care about these characters. Nobody's going to give a shit about the dude with a mullet in this film because he was a shithead. And that character will be forgotten 12 minutes from now. This is a backwards way of making characters. Stop doing it, horror movies. Just stop it. Alright, rant over, let's move on. Which character are you most able to identify with or connect with, and in what way? Laurie Strode, I guess, because this is her journey, even though she's not in a ton of this movie. Whenever she's there, you absolutely gravitate towards her and you're rooting for her because she's the original final girl, and you want her to remain as such. And the granddaughter character is one that I liked as well in all 3 of these films, and I think she's put to fair use in this until she's not, as I stated before. Okay, best line or most memorable quote. I literally just finished watching this and I couldn't tell you a single damn quote from this movie. The opening monologue by Jamie Lee Curtis is powerful at times. Can't tell you what it said or what the summation of that was anymore, but there you have it. Were you surprised by the ending, and what would you do differently? So much. I'll come back to this in the spoilers, because I really don't want to give it away. Did you celebrate the holiday featured in this film? Halloween is in fact my favorite holiday. I absolutely love it. I have little fun statues. This is a little gnome that says boo all around my house. As you can see, I have a candelabra and another cute little gnome guy over here that says eek. I'm a big Halloween guy. If so, how are your own celebrations similar to or different from those portrayed in this film? Well, I don't murder. I actively stay away from that, and also I actively try not to get murdered. That's something that is forefront of mind almost every day. And these characters don't really celebrate Halloween, they mourn it. So, yeah. I partake in the celebrations of Halloween. Woo-de-doo-de-doo. Anything else I'd like to add? Yeah. This movie is terrible. One of the worst of the year. Texas Chainsaw Massacre not come out earlier in the year, I would say this is my worst movie of the year, and kind of a disappointment coming off of Halloween Kills, which is a movie that, even though the fan base by and large didn't like, had enough concepts and stuck to them that I kind of like that. This is a huge downfall from that. This is one of my least favorite Halloween films, and may in fact actually end up being my least favorite one, with more time to gestate on what I was not a fan of in this film. So, yeah, this movie is bonkers awful, but I will talk about it forever. So there you have, if you do not want spoilers, this is the time to hop off. So spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Ooh, man. So this film is interesting. Both this film and the previous film, I feel like, would have worked better if Michael Myers had died in the basement, burned to death at the end of Halloween. He should have died. The second film, Halloween Kills, was a fascinating concept, idea of collective trauma and how we like sort of persecute as a society those with which we fear. So, like, we hear Michael Myers, we spread out that fear and become like a mob and attack it. And I thought that was kind of an interesting aspect of Halloween Kills. Whenever Michael Myers was on screen, the film stopped working. That movie should have had Michael Myers remain dead and the movie be about the fear that Michael Myers has spread and the communal trauma and how we deal with that, and how you have some people who sort of sink in and some people who lash out, and lash out in unhealthy ways, lashing out at anybody with a mental illness or with a mask. And that was captivating enough for me to give that movie a soft recommendation. This movie, hearkening down on the evil of it all. Sam Loomis is always talking about the evil of Michael Myers and stuff like that. And so they never really explore the nature of evil or how it comes about and how the boogeyman is a construct that we make. We pick out that person in society. If Michael Myers isn't there anymore to point our finger at and say, that's it, that's evil, there's always going to be another Michael Myers. His name might not be Michael Myers, it might be Billy or something like that. And poor Billy is going to have done something wrong, and we're going to point to what he did wrong and say what he did was true evil. But that isn't necessarily the case. There's a human inside that evil that can rise above it if we let it. And a large portion of this movie is about that. The first 40 minutes of this movie I thought I was really going to like, because I responded well to the idea of this man did this terrible thing and he got put away for it, and then you pick up the story a good chunk later and he is this is the boyfriend character of Allison, and he is trying to just live his life when the whole town thinks he's a boogeyman because of the horrible accident that he had caused, the horrible death that happened under his watch. And he's trying to rise above it. But what does it say when so much of society just continues to say that he is a boogeyman? So then he's like, fucking, you're right, if I am a boogeyman, then I might as well just be a boogeyman. And that's where he meets Michael Myers in the sewer and is like, teach me how you kill. And it's one of the stupidest scenes, because you've already seen him accidentally kill this kid, and then you've seen him kind of accidentally sort of kill this homeless man that says that he's Michael Myers, that has his own knife on him. And then he's like, they're struggling, and then he gets stabbed. Well, then the ex-boyfriend of Allison is lured into the sewer where he knows Michael is, so that Michael can teach him how to be the killer. And there's this really weird scene about 20 minutes beforehand where the boyfriend character finds Michael in the sewer, and they hold on to each other and look into each other's eyes, and the reading is like, he's like, looks into Michael's eyes and he's like, oh my God, he's like me. He's just a misunderstood beast. I'm a misunderstood beast, but let's be beastly. And that's kind of how I read it. Or he looks into his eyes and he's like, I am a boogeyman. That's fucked. And then he goes and beats a boogeyman. That was around the time that I hopped off. If they had justified or continued to point out how societally we made the monster that he became effectively, I think I would have been on board. But they do it so haphazardly that it fails to work. And it's done so haphazardly that it defeats the message that they're trying to say. If the movie is trying to say that society builds its own boogeyman and we should really be watchful over who we're persecuting and who we're attacking and lashing with our words and thoughts and stuff like that, then you shouldn't then make that character actively pursue being the boogeyman and learning to be a lesser Michael Myers. Michael Myers also, so I'm not sure who this movie's for. I like that this sort of does a spoilers for Friday the 13th, a Friday the 13th 5 kind of thing where Michael Myers really isn't in it. The killer in this movie is pretending to be Michael Myers, and that's the granddaughter's boyfriend. He is largely Michael Myers throughout this film. He's the boogeyman. He's the shape, and the shape is ever changing. I think that was a quote. You can go back. That's the quote I'll put in the movie. The shape of evil is always changing, or something like that is what was said. But I digress. I'm not sure who this movie's for, because hardcore fans are going to be disappointed that Michael Myers doesn't show up until about the 45 or 50 minute mark of this film, and it's just a single scene of them looking into each other's eyes, and then he's off screen again for another 10 minutes. And then Michael Myers only kills like one other person in like a random shower scene kind of thing. And then it's this guy being the killer the whole time. So I feel like hardcore fans are going to be really disappointed with that. I didn't care so much because I was kind of trying to follow what they were trying to say with this whole boogeyman concept. But ultimately, there's like 4 writers on this. Too many cooks in the kitchen, I feel, because the movie's trying to say one thing, showing us another, and it's all for naught. And then finally, when it gets to be the final fight between Michael and Laurie, it's not between Michael and Laurie, it's between Laurie and this kid who she was rooting for until she immediately turns on him when she looks into his eyes and she's like, he has boogeyman eyes. He shouldn't have boogeyman eyes. He might be a boogeyman. And it's one of the dumbest scenes in the film. But she's rooting for this guy until she immediately turns on him, not because of any of his actions, but because of the way he looks at her. And that's a constant refrain between 2 other characters in the film as well, of how they know that true evil has happened, is the darkest eyes, the devil's eyes kind of thing, harkening back to that very first movie. It's all bullshit. Sam Loomis was a bad doctor. He did nothing to try and help Michael. He did everything to actively not rehabilitate that character. That's something that we can examine now, 45 years later. But at the time, like, whatever, it was a construct in horror that they probably didn't think anybody was going to really think much about or look into for these movies. Tangent over, that was a side tangent. Going back, it's between Laurie and this kid ends up killing himself, and then he frames it so that the daughter or granddaughter will make it look like Laurie lost her mind and killed him, which is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. My God, I hated that scene. That's just the worst. And then all of a sudden, the door is open behind her, and she's like, Michael is in here. And so then she confronts Michael, and that fight is the slappiest kind of fight. Like, it all happens in the kitchen. All the energy that you had in that first... I wasn't a big, huge fan of Halloween 2018. I thought if we were going to wind back the clock all the way to the beginning and have this be the direct sequel to it, why just make a movie that's filled with all the same trappings of every previous Halloween film? That just didn't work for me. That what did work was the opening scene and the last 15 minutes. And I liked when Laurie became his boogeyman. That was kind of neat. And that whole epic fight in the whole house was genuinely that. It was epic. It was nail-biting. When you get to the final fight in this between Michael and Laurie in the kitchen, she throws him up against the kitchen island, and then he twists and throws her up against the kitchen island. And then he has a knife, and he's going to start stabbing her with it. But she has a knife, and she's going to start stabbing him. And it's going to go back and forth until inevitably she starts winning the fight. And she does. And anyway, needless to say, I did not like Halloween Ends. Let me know what you thought of and thought about the film in the comments down below. I do think this is a contender for worst of the franchise. It's not a very good movie, but there you have it. Halloween Ends. Let's hope it truly does. However, I believe the producer said that there's more on the way under a different timeline. Hooray. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Peace.